Okay, guys, I think we're going to start. So I'm going to say that again, thank you everyone for joining us. Wonderful to see everyone here, some familiar faces as well. We're excited to launch the Unboxing School RFP this evening Israel time. And our agenda for today is quite exciting. We have Avi Warshavsky, Mindset CEO, who's going to be presenting the movement as a whole. After that, honored to have Betsy here with us. Betsy, can you give us a wave? Thank you. And we're going to have a quick chat and hear what she has to say about what's going on and what's been going on in this crazy year in the educational field. And we're going to end up with a quick presentation about the operational aspect of the RFP, and you will have a chance to ask questions and we'll be happy to answer. So Avi, I think the floor is gonna be yours first.
Thank you, Amit. I'm really happy to see here all the familiar faces. And actually, some of you already been exposed to this movement, but I think as we go, the story is getting shaped more and more. I need a host options if you want to see my presentation. Otherwise, I can mimic it. But yes, once. Who is the host, Amit?
Just a second. Now you can share.
Okay, thank you. Good. So the starting point for the school movement is really this picture. A kid that sits in front of his screen and raising his hand to answer a question of his teacher in a math lesson, but he's actually in his home kitchen, and this is the story of this crazy year. And as we know, this year brought really a huge challenge to the educational system. A colleague of mine that was using this boat that was stuck in the Suez Canal as a metaphor for this challenge, and I find it extremely accurate. Really, in a way, this whole huge ship was stuck in the middle of the canal, and whoever wanted really education to keep working had to leave the ship and use a drone and use a small boat, maybe use bicycle and going to the ground or whatever. And these workarounds that were created during this time, in a way, fulfilled our dream about a paradigm shift. We really had this opportunity during the year to smell how it might look like a paradigm shift or disruption, and all those words that we used to use in future mode, and all of a sudden became to be present. I see that people are still entering. Can you make a way that I won't see everyone who enters the webinar and admit it myself? Thank you.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's really a dream if we put aside all the terrible challenges that we had to face. A dream that came true, but as we know, system has this tendency to be in inertia, and as things are going to get better, I think the ability to really preserve this this energy and really use this ability to really bring change in education. 1 second, I have a technical problem here. Ran, right now I see
Yeah.
editors.
Yeah, because your cost, I'll remove it from cost and then I.
Great. It's although I'm have some disorders in my attention economy, still it's challenging. So
Now it's okay.
great. So the elephant is doing a great job alone. You don't need the ding dong of the entering people. So in a way, although it's a huge opportunity, we see lots of challenges. I mentioned the inertia, but it's also the mistrust that we are facing between all the stakeholders all over the world. It's also the gaps that whoever is dealing with education in the field knows that all the gaps that we used to know are now much wider. And these all good reasons for why do we need a movement. And the cause of this movement of unboxing school is really to create a profound transformation in schools based on the advantage that happened during this year of crisis. And when we try to describe the change that we want to bring about, we're using the language of habits. And as you can see on this slide, the language of habits in the last 5 years or so became to be very popular on the personal level. I did not read all those books, but between the ones I read, there are some excellent ones, like the Charles Duhigg one, and some that I did not really enjoy. But I think what's important about all of them is that this language is probably very accessible. We all understand what we mean when we're talking about habits, and we also find very effective ways to change our lives through really concentrating on our different habits. And the idea is really to speak about the system and schools in the same language of habits that we are speaking about individuals. And looking on the habits of educational systems, before the pandemic, we used to have a few strong habits, like the habit that assumes that learning occurs when we are all in the same time in the same room, or the habits that assumes that learning happens when an adult is teaching a younger person, or when the learning happens in lessons of 45 minutes, and so on. And what happened to us during this crisis is that someone shaped her habits, and we learned to see those habits from an external point of view, and really to find also the upsides and the downsides of those habits. And as we know, as individuals, our habits are much more stronger than our attention. Even if we don't like the way habit is working on us, we don't always have the ability to change it. And the theories around habits shows that if you want to change a habit, you have to look on the fundamentals of these habits, on the basic building blocks. And those building blocks can be divided across the lines of time, space, interactions with other people, our emotional state during the habit. And just giving one example that appears in this book of Charles Duhigg is like he's sitting in his office. He's a reporter and writes until the afternoon, about 3 p.m. And then he feels some sort of depression, maybe he's bored a little bit. He leaves his chair, going through the corridor to the cafeteria to buy a coffee, and always find himself buying a muffin. And this is an habit, and this habit includes some aspects that he likes, like the one that he's going through the corridor and meets other people, but some aspects that are against his will, like he's buying this muffin that although he's in a diet. And what the research shows that if he's changing one of the building blocks, for instance, leaving his chair at 1, not at 3, or interacting with people without going to the cafeteria or any other building block, he can change and modify the whole habit and redesign it. And this is more or less the change that we are hoping to see in school. And the idea is that if every school will take one radical habit, one of those habits we mentioned before, for instance, dividing in a different way time and space, and adopt a change around this habit, this change can really modify the whole system, because those habits are in a way very radical habits. They're habits that are really touching every inch in what's happening in school, and they can be compared to these lines of really sewing things and taking one string from the scarf and really affecting the whole scarf. And the way we think about it is like really creating a movement that will be dedicated and focus on this theory of change, of focusing on one habit. We see this movement based on an alliance between organizations across the globe, both startups and educational organizations and teachers and of course all the ecosystem around them. And we insist of using the word movement. It's not a project or a organization or any other notion that we are much more comfortable with as mindset. We want to use the phrase movement because in the end of the day, we want to reach a wider audience, that it's not just the professionals that are already part of this discourse. And we believe that parents could be the fuel of this kind of an energy that should come from the bottom up and really be like shared between different activists. And the theory of change based, first of all, on the idea of the one radical habit that I mentioned before, but also about leaning on startups that are going to be very dominant players in this kind of activity. We believe that the dialogue between startups and the world of education is really, really fruitful and effective always, but especially in these special times when we are in sort of uncertainty conditions. And as we know, startups are usually at their best in uncertainty conditions, and we want to use this talent of them to help us to really understand the new landscape and the new needs and opportunities around us. And beside of really moving this movement and looking at the movement, let's say in more like public aspects of it, we also try to lead 3 very concrete activities. Each one of them build on partnerships and alliances. It's not a mindset project. It's really a collaboration between different organizations. One pillar is working with schools, the super users. Another pillar is creating sort of a playbook for the change. And the last one, the one that we want to focus tonight, is the Venture Studio, and the RFP is actually about the Venture Studio. So as to the super users, the idea is really to create sorts of squads that includes parents and students and teachers and the leadership of the schools and startups. Ideally, around every school, we should have sort of a squad like this that really help the school to adapt this one change. And when I'm saying helping the school adapt this one change, we really see a very structured process, starting from mapping the strengths and weaknesses of the school, especially in the last year, choosing this one, identifying and choosing this one radical habit. And this one is a very tough piece of the story. Like, I think schools that want to be changed, go through a change and have the ability, are sometimes like a kid in a candy store. There are so many things that we can do, And it's not easy to really focus on one of them, but we see it as a very important aspect of the story. And then designing the change, which includes or might affect the way the teachers are working in school, and the communication between them and the students and the parents, and it might affect the space and the way it's designed, and the economy of the school. And in order really to make all this happen after we have this planning in place, we should try to find the best tools to support this process. It could be startups that already up there and relevant for this transition that the school wants to make. It could be a tailor-made development that we can help them to do. But this is more or less the journey that we think that a school that will go through this kind of a journey can really modify the way it works. We already started the process according to those lines with 6 schools here in the south of Israel, in the Negev desert. And we try really to learn from those schools what should be the right methodologies and ways of working. And this is a very natural aspect that can help us also to design the next pillar, which is the playbook. The idea is that the playbook will be sort of a guide for a change, but a dynamic guide. It's not a book. It's an online environment, crowd-based, that really dedicated to support schools. And we, of course, hope that, for instance, those 6 schools that we already work with will be the first one to upload some of their conclusions and takeaways from the process. And the playbook should include both like best practice of those schools. It should include ways to communicate between them and among them, and really to create a community that support this kind of a process. It should include the validated solutions that those schools are using, assuming that they can serve some other schools as well, and so forth. And last, the aspect that we would like to focus tonight is the venture studio. And we were speaking about startups that can support those processes, and the venture studio is actually the hub that can really help those startups to grow, and also a hub that can really design new startups from scratch. And we see the venture studio as both an R&D joint venture with companies and organizations, and I will elaborate on this in a second, but also as an investment arm that can support existing startups. And the R&D process is based actually on partnership between innovation partners that could be companies from the industry that have a unique technology, or a university or academic institution that have sort of a theory, or an organization that have a very deep understanding of the needs. And from the other hand, a team of entrepreneurs that can develop according to a methodology that we have developed, can develop really a common product that takes the asset that the innovation partner brings. It could be the technology or the theory, and connect it to knowledge about the users and about the needs and about rapid methodology of designing the solutions. And the idea is really to create very quickly a solution that in natural dynamics, maybe it would have taken like 5 or 6 or 10 years, because this solution was created by a company, the technology was created by a company that is focused, let's say, on marketing or on media, and thanks to this collaboration, we can take the energy and this asset and direct it to the educational work. And those development are going to be concentrated on those aspects of habits clusters. Like we have here like 8 clusters. Each one is a family of habits, like our habits around the social emotional aspects of learning, or our habits about communication or our habits about blended learning. And the idea is that each initiative will be dedicated to really solve one of those habit changes. And we don't see the interaction between the venture studio, the super users, and the playbook as a linear one. We assume that they're going to be, each one of them is going to affect the other and be affected by the other. And this is part of the potential of this initiative. Just to recap, we did our first steps of this movement in the fall. We kicked off the idea in the Israel Ethic Week on October, and we dedicated the first quarter of the year really to do like the fundamental moves of creating an advisory board and some partnerships and planning and initial activities in the field of teachers and in the field of the playbook. And now in the second quarter, we are starting this RFP, really calling partners to join the venture studio. And we hope that by the end of the year, all the three pillars will be active in one level or another. And of course, we see this whole year as an MVP year. Like, we believe that we're going to learn as we move. Ideally, we could do it much slower and learn much carefully, but we know that we have a very short window of time that this transition can happen, and we don't want to miss it. So we are jumping to the water, and hopefully can invite you to join this journey. We have a great advisory board of people with the right background. Betsy, that we're going to meet later, is one of them. And I think we have around the table both people with background about technology and about education and about business and about policy making and the intersection between all those aspects. So we really hope to find synergies tonight, and we'll later on we'll be happy to have a dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Avi, and to all of you that weren't here at the beginning. So welcome. I'm quickly going to repeat our agenda for today. Avi was just talking about the Unboxing School movement as a whole. We're now going to move on and listen to a fascinating conversation between Dr. Cecilia Wiseman, who's Mindset VP R&D, and Betsy Corcoran, who co-founded EdSearch, and we're so happy and honored to have you here with us.
Delighted to be here.
Hi, Betsy. Again, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. To kick off, would you like to react to anything Avi said that you would like to share with everyone?
Yeah, so there's so much about unboxing that is really exciting and promising. And one of the challenges we always have is trying to solve yesterday's problems. We had in the last year a ton of problems. There's no shortage of them. And I think everybody could come up with the same list. But one of the things I particularly like about the unboxing idea is if you think about even videos where people have unboxed things on the internet, there's a certain amount of joyfulness and excitement and energy that comes with that unboxing. And that's something that we've lost tremendously in learning, in education broadly. And so one of the things that I'm certainly hoping to see and hoping to talk more about and encourage is how do we rekindle that sense of energy, that sense of joyfulness in learning. It does take more than just a schoolroom and a teacher. It takes really this whole broad community of which everyone here is a part. So that is also a really exciting element. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a very iterative and a very integrated process of learning from the learners, of learning from the educators, and then learning from each other.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that that's, I think, what we are all searching for, to pick up on the positive side of the very hard year that we all had. And one thing, Betsy, that I think we are always trying to think is that even though it was a hard year health-wise, for education, we feel that actually it opened a sort of door. For many years, as you said, students didn't feel this excitement about education. And so maybe this year did open a few doors. That's one part of the questions. And following that, do you think startups could be the ones that respond in a way, in a more relevant way to this positive opportunity that was opened up for us?
Yeah, so absolutely, so many things changed. And when you have, as Avi pointed out, when you have the boat stuck in the Suez Canal or people stuck at home, many, many things have to change all at the same time. In the United States, we've been fixated on seat time, and we keep wondering how we changed seat time this year. Everybody changed seat time. No one was where they used to sit. And that's both a scary, but also a potentially wonderful thing. The real opportunity for startups is to look at these radical changes and think about exactly what we were talking about before. How do we take things we've learned in other industries? How do we take other ideas and inspirations from other areas and really apply them? The challenge that schools will have is everyone's tired, right? How many times have people started saying, oh, I can't wait to get back to normal? Well, normal wasn't brilliant to start with, right? And the idea of going back to, normal is, I mean, to some degree, it's kind of like trying to pull on the old jeans that never quite got through the wash. I mean, it can be a little challenging. So startups, by definition, are people run by people who are willing to try something uncomfortable, willing to try something new, trying to pull ideas from different sectors and see how they fit together, and hopefully listening. One of the things that EdSurge focused on for our entire existence has really been trying to open this dialogue between educators, learners, ultimately families, which we didn't particularly do, but they should be a part of the conversation as well, and the entrepreneurial sector. So if anything, I would encourage people to be the very best listener that you can ever be as we go forward, because everything is somewhat different and it cannot be the same.
Definitely. From the startup perspective, as you said, the opportunity might be real, because as you said, they are used to walk through, as you said, the old jeans or uncomfortable jeans. What do you think, Betsy, about the other side? I mean, for too many years, the educational industry was too comfortable, not changing at all, and not very receptive of innovation of startups. Do you see not only 2019, of all the moves of the market in 2020, where do you see the industry really opening up? And if you think the industry is really opening up?
Yeah, so, we saw this radical shift where more, millions of teachers around the world suddenly found themselves teaching on a scenario like this, on a Zoom call or on a screen, something that they had never either wanted to do, planned to do, or had done before. And yet everyone made that change. So clearly the opportunity to change education is there. People can make these changes. Now, the other huge trend that we have certainly experienced in the United States, and I think to some in varying degrees around the world, is recognizing that the system had really disenfranchised a lot of people. We have seen a much better recognition of the needs of historically disadvantaged learners, people who are impoverished, people who are remote, people who are coming from different backgrounds. We've seen a real opening of that dialogue. And I think that that is fundamental, and hopefully entrepreneurs will continue to sort of build along those lines. And then the third thing is that even though any teacher would have told you the relationship between a teacher and a student is fundamental to learning, we saw the recognition of that, which we kind of capture with SEL or social emotional learning language. We've seen the recognition of that in spades. Clearly, you cannot learn unless there are relationships, either relationships between the educator and the student, amongst the students, ideally with the families as well. So, you know, all of these things are new habits, new opportunities that entrepreneurs can, you know, seeing those openings, really sort of say, great, now what are the tools that I can bring to the table that will really help these things blossom and help really create the kind of learning environment that we all want to live in.
Yeah. But for the entrepreneurs to be able to do that, I think a huge challenge of, especially EdTech, I mean, FinTech didn't have this problem, was the support. The industry support, the investment support. We saw most governments this year raise significantly the resources, the investment in education. We saw a lot of industry leaders talking about investment. Do you think this this wave will carry on? I mean, do people truly understand everything you just said, or is just our political response for what happened this year? I mean, in a way, for changes to happen, people should actually understand that education has to be changed and have to maintain these resources. Do you think this will happen?
Well, let's put it this way. What people keep saying is there's a lot of money sloshing around in the system. There's money from governments in the United States and internationally. There's a lot of there's been a lot of loosening of you know, financial taps. So there's a lot of money sloshing around. It doesn't know what it's searching for, right? The money is not searching for a socially equitable, fair, joyful solution, okay? The money is searching for people with good ideas. So I think it's kind of a two-part answer, right? The entrepreneurs are the ones who have to come up with really great ideas. And it's up to a community like this to encourage us to say, and you should do that in a way that makes sense, that builds the system that we want to build. And the money is going to go to good ideas, but there is more money sloshing around for remote learning, you know, learning in general, learning problems, refugee problems, racial problems. There's a lot of money sloshing around right now. It will try to find solutions that seem to be gaining momentum and that seem to be winning solutions. It's up to this community to make sure that those solutions are really grounded in great principles.
Oh, great. Yeah, this money sloshing around. I mean, there's a big challenge now because of education was actually not by choice, but let's say society, parents saw teachers in front of their eyes. I mean, everyone was obliged to see what was happening inside the classroom. Like poor teachers, they were like the soldiers in front of the battle. But on the other hand, what happened is that we see a huge move of homeschooling from one side. From another side, we've seen dropouts of teenagers like never before. And the concern now is, will school be able to bring back all these people, the interest? And the question is, do you think there is a chance for solutions to bring back these people, or are we losing? I mean, the school is losing power.
Well, so you sort of, I think you've kind of combined two points or two questions, right? Absolutely. There have been a lot of people who've moved away from certainly what we in the United States, we call public education or kind of classic education. And I don't know that some of them are going to come back. I think that it will be pretty interesting to see in September what proportion of students formally return either physically or in some sort of hybrid mode. We don't know the answer to that question. But I want to take a half step back and say that the ideas, the innovations should be around learning. I mean, we've codified schools, a classroom, a desk, what have you. That's been the answer for the last couple hundred years. But, you know, already, even before the pandemic, we started to see a lot of entrepreneurial work and ideas about other ways of learning. Everything from the most informal ways, maker movements and maker fairs, and how do you kind of collaborate informally, to boot camps, to other kinds of certificates. So I don't think that the efforts of entrepreneurs should necessarily be about, again, rebuilding the school. It should be rooted in how do we help people understand how to live in the world, right? That's what learning really is, right? We're trying to raise kids. We're trying to raise ourselves. We're trying to help ourselves recreate or create the future. So some of these efforts will be rooted in traditional school systems. Some of them will be hybrid learning. Some of them will be much more informal learning. And all of those things are okay, provided that they are rooted in authentically helping people invent, discover, ask questions about, connect with, and make sense of the world in front of us.
Oh, great. I'm going to ask my last question. I just want to say to everyone, if anyone has questions, please write them down. Also, Amit, at the end, we'll have space for all of you to ask. And my last question is, I'm looking at my screen here, and there's people from very strong technological companies in South America. We have from Italy, people that strongly work with the public system. We have investors here. So one thing that Avi mentioned, Betsy, that we strongly believe that unless we bring all the stakeholders together to support new solutions, we won't be able to change anything. Not only that, we won't be able to do anything. I mean, the old model of a publisher getting a lot of professors together and creating a textbook is over. So I would like you to talk a little bit, what do you think about this, not really new, the last few years, ideas of venture studios where you bring the industry together with the research to really try to develop new solutions very close to the user. This idea of really creating space where all the stakeholders work together towards a new solution.
Sure. So just briefly, and I'm sure lots of people have far more questions for Avi than for me, but we have always known that bringing together people who come from different walks of life, different experiences, it's that rubbing together of ideas that really sparks innovation. That's been written about since Jane Jacobs and many other fine economists and anthropologists. So figuring out how to bring people together to collaborate in new ways is the great opportunity that we have going forward. I'll also point out that, what we saw in the pandemic is we saw biotech companies and researchers and universities coming together in a really profound way to create vaccines in record time. I mean, they did something phenomenal there, and they did it by blasting down barriers that had separated university researchers, company researchers, by overstepping boundaries and concerns about patents and IP, and sort of recognizing that the goal create a vaccine to conquer this virus that is devastating the world was far more important than whether so-and-so had the first name on a paper or so-and-so had the right IP sort of set up altogether. I think that's a model for what we need to think about going forward.
No doubt. I think it's a hope for mankind. I mean, there's no doubt that this definitely, it's a huge hope for all of us that mankind has a chance. Amit, back to you.
Thank you so much for both of you for some fascinating takeaways. We're going to move to the last section of this event. And let me just share my screen. Okay, so we're going to take the next 10 minutes or so and dive into the operational aspects of the RFP, the Venture Studio RFP by the Unboxing School movement. And I want to start by saying that this RFP is a call for action. We're looking for relevant partners to really move forward and join us in fulfilling the mission of the movement. And I'll start by addressing what are we looking for? Who's relevant to this? And my answer would be basically anyone that has a relevant asset to what the movement is trying to achieve. It can either be a piece of technology, research, knowledge, approach. It really doesn't matter. As long as you think that you can bring something unique to the table, something that is relevant to education's new normal, we're interested. In terms of the entities that we're seeking, it can either be government, NGOs, corporates, or research organizations. And to those assets which will be chosen, we offer a 6-month R&D marathon devoted to the exploration of innovative learning solutions. Now, the picture I showed you before, that's the view from our window, and that's the view from the inside. So it's definitely worth the trip. So come and visit. Before I go into the bits and bytes of the RFP, I do want to emphasize one thing. The Venture Studio is about building extraordinary EdTech products together. We're building this together, and that means we're going to meet each and every one of the applicants, and we're really going to go into specifics and find the right way to tailor together your asset and our expertise. And again, the mission here is to build those future EdTech products that are relevant to the new reality that we're all facing. Now to the details. This is how it's going to work. As I mentioned, first of all, and most important, we see this as a partnership. The process is we host in our center in the south of Israel in-house entrepreneurs. Each team of entrepreneurs is assigned to a specific project, and we define together the partner and the Unboxing School movement. We define the objectives and the roadmap, and we move forward to an intensive R&D process that includes research, pedagogy, design, content, and of course, technology is involved in everything that we do. Mindset deeply believes in the involvement of users in this process. So the whole process has a very strong backbone of listening and talking to our users. We do that with our unique methodologies for testing and piloting. And what we've discovered over the years is that this process really yields very interesting business opportunities and very feasible indicators to what will succeed and what will fail when it goes out to market. So we see this process as a great way to explore new business. Last but not least, we asked the partners that will be chosen to partially fund together with us the process and fund 100K. What you see here is an overview of the methodology that we've developed and have been implementing for the past few years. I'm not going to go into specifics, but it is important to say, and I mentioned this before, the process is very designed and crafted. It's an existing process that we've had a lot of experience with, and that we feel gives the best results. And we've seen this happening with a few partners in the past. Those Israelis in the crowd will recognize some of the biggest names in Israel, and the international crowd will do the same with others. But we've had projects with each and every one of these partners in this slide, basically showing us great results that we look forward to explore with new partners. So after 6 months of working with us, what should you expect as a chosen partner? I would first mention a product prototype. And again, those of you who know R&D and business development processes understand that getting to these results, excuse me, in 6 months is not trivial. It's very ambitious, but as I said, we've seen it happen, and that's why we feel very confident that this process can give you this. So you should expect a product prototype with a pedagogical backbone and real users' data. The whole process is packed up as the final report with global exposure. This is using Mindset and the Movement's global network. So whatever we find out and learn together throughout this process really has a global exposure and reaches all continents of the globe. And again, I would mention just one last more time. We feel that this process is a lot about learning, a lot about listening to the users and really finding out the pains and the needs of the field. But it doesn't end at that. We feel that this process also leads to very, very interesting business opportunities. The submission deadline is in a week's time. So it's short, but you can make it. It's April 28th. All the forms that you need to fill out, it's not too long and not too demanding. We really want to hear you out and listen to what you have to say. Contact us. I'll put, Ran, if you can please put the link to the web in the chat. And I think this is a great time for you to talk to us and ask whatever questions that you have. I'll just stop sharing. And I will also like to encourage Mindset's team to engage in the Q&A. So shoot, guys, whatever you have to say, we'd love to hear it. Okay, I see Ran just put the link in the chat, so you're welcome to explore it. Would anyone have a question?
Yeah, hi, I have a question. This is Diato Bigman-Klebanov, Educational Testing Service. Are you looking for something that would be of potentially global impact, or are you looking for solutions specifically for Israeli kids? So is it going to be centered on Hebrew, say, or is the vision more like something multilingual that could help kids in various countries?
With everything that Mindset does, we see EdTech as a global conversation. So we definitely urge applicants to contact us with global mindsets.
Got it. Thank you.
Guys, we'd love to hear you. It's okay. We can just chat. You don't have to ask tough questions. I'm not sure that was clear enough, so I would really like to feel you and see if you guys
Question.
what your thoughts are.
Hi, Amit, I have a question. May I?
Yes.
What about companies that already have some type of product, let's say a better product, and already have some users, let's say a few hundred users, and already collect data from users and collaborate with the academy and Ministry of Education and so on? It's such.
That's a very good question, and I want to emphasize we're not looking for only ideas. We're actually looking to partner with already well-developed products or technologies. And what I believe we can bring to this setting is I feel that the conversation with the users and using our methodologies can really bring value to almost anything that you put on the table. Again, this will be a well coordinated conversation about the objectives of the process. And I also want to address another question that someone put in the chat. Rina, thank you for that. The ownership arrangement in regard to the product. I feel like I'm repeating myself, so excuse me for that, but it's very important for all of us to understand. The business model and the partnership arrangement with each of the applicants and the chosen assets, the chosen partners, will be designed together, taking into consideration the needs and the objectives of both us and the partners. Rina, does that answer your question?
Amit, I'm gonna press you on that a little bit on behalf of the entrepreneurs. So can you just give us an example? Does that mean that will Mindset potentially take an equity stake in the ventures? Will Mindset take 0? Will it take 1%? Will it take 10%? Just you know, give a range of what kinds of relationships people might expect.
Great, thank you. Again, a great question, and I'm sure that's what people are wondering right now. So thank you, Betsy, for that. I was actually, I think I can think of, I should mention a few, maybe 3 models in this context. And Avi, would you like to elaborate on that? Because we were just talking about it. I think we have a—
Yes. I think the way to really see the models is trying to have a few personas of the typical partners. So one case could be a company that have an asset that works in a different world. Let's say a company that have technology that works in banking, and this technology is extremely relevant for edtech, but they don't have the bandwidth and the understanding of the edtech, and together we design a new product. Now, this product could be a new startup, and then we divide the stakes between us and the partner. This is one scenario, and the percentage could be defined according to the investments for each side. Another scenario can be that we are designing a product that is a sort of a joint venture, and one of the organizations is selling this asset or this product, but the other gets sort of a percentage for the efforts that he put in it, and there is no equity at all in this story. And I can see even a scenario in which the partner is a big company. We had this similar occasion with Microsoft in the past. Their policy in general is not investing in something that any other company has equity. So in a way, they bought us out totally, or invested more, and they have all the stakes on what was created. So I think the whole range is possible, starting from 0 equity to some kind of division. Our incentive is really, first of all, to learn, and we believe that each partner really brings a new world of knowledge and a new world landscape of technologies, and this is already beneficial. We also believe that partnering with existing products really makes a whole difference. It's not the typical scenario of a startup starting from scratch. It's something that already have like an unfair advantage that we feel extremely important, especially at this time that we want to create a quick impact. And in the end of the way, in the cases that it become to be a startup, it will be acting like a startup with dividing equity, but it's not the only case that I can see. Is that answering, Betsy? Great.
Thank you, Avi. I see there aren't any other questions. I'm sorry.
Actually, I just realized I had a question, but it could be too specific. And if it is, then please tell me to go back to my to my room. I was wondering, like, we're already an edtech startup, and we have an existing product, and it's working quite well in a few markets. There could always be more markets, but we now want to take that product and make it into a service in a way. And would that be kind of an initiative that would fit in the venture studio, or?
I think it's definitely worth starting the conversation. I guess that to give a more specific answer, I would have to learn more and understand.
Yeah. But I don't want to, tire people here with all the story.
But I would love to hear from you. I'm gonna leave my email in the chat. Please,
okay.
This is for everyone. Feel free to contact us with any other question. It can be specific or general. We're here, and we would love to hear from you.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Sure. My keyboard is stuck. Man, can you please put my email in the chat before everybody leaves?
Yeah.
Thank you. Guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. We loved having you here. I want to thank Betsy once again. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on our advisory board as well. And I think the final thing would be to urge you all once again, contact us, talk to us. I'm sure we have great ideas in the crowd, and we would love to source out great ideas and see and examine an option to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening, good night to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.